Long ago, in the summer of 1970, a remarkable thing happened in a quiet state park in Clackamas County, Oregon. This stretch of land along the Clackamas River would go down in history as the setting for the one and only rock festival sponsored by a state government. This 5-day party would become a legend and remembered as Vortex2, a biodegradable festival of life.
I now hereby command you all to disperse. Those that do not disperse will be considered under arrest.
May 1970. National student dissent over Richard Nixon's policy in Vietnam was coming to Portland, Oregon.
I now hereby command you all to disperse. Those that do not disperse will be considered under arrest.
May 1970. National student dissent over Richard Nixon's policy in Vietnam was coming to Portland, Oregon. The president had gone back on his campaign promise to withdraw American troops from Vietnam. Instead, he decides to invade Cambodia and draft 150,000 more young people into the military. Universities across the country explode in protests. Demonstrations become even more intense when 4 students at Kent State University in Ohio are shot and killed by National Guard soldiers. More than 500 colleges find trouble at their doorsteps. Demonstrations, teach-ins, sit-ins, and student strikes disrupt campus routine. Students at Portland State University declare their own strike to protest the war and the Kent State shootings. Students barricade the streets around Portland's park blocks and shut the university down. On May 11th, the tactical squad of the Portland Police Bureau forced the demonstrators out of the park blocks with a demonstration of their own. The tactics that the police use have never been seen before in the city of Portland, and the violence shocks the community. How could this happen here? It's going to be a long, hot summer in the City of Roses.
It was just a bloody afternoon. We called it Bloody Monday. It was on May 11th, 1970, and they just came straight in. They told us to disperse. We did not disperse. We were going to make it a symbolic, gesture, but then, we thought we were going to be arrested.
I now hereby command you all to disperse. Those that do not disperse will be considered under arrest.
But they didn't arrest anybody. They just came in with their clubs, and they call us militants, but these guys are militant. They're coming in with their clubs, going oos, 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 and we're yelling peace, peace, peace. And finally the noises just overran into each other, and then they knocked us down. We were circled in the first rank there, arms length, and then just the full force of them, they knocked us over, and then they started clubbing. My mother, who thought she was going to see me on CBS News get zapped, she sees me getting clubbed, cops attacking me at Portland State just a few miles down from her home. She actually shut her eyes and told my sister, "Has he been hit yet? Has he been hit yet?"
I was right there as the police's attack squad came in with their lockstep and their kind of automatic kind of behavior, and then they started swinging, and I was on a park bench, and when I saw people getting hit and blood coming out, I just started running. So they were hitting people with sticks, big battle sticks. It was very grisly. It was a very frightening thing to see. The police had the park blocks cordoned off too, so they tried to hold us in, but I just ran right through them, and just they couldn't catch me. So,
well, my recollection, I was still going to Portland State part-time in the evening and sometimes in the afternoons, and didn't get involved in all of that. But I remember it was a pretty troublesome thing. There was a lot going on out there in the parks, and it was, I think, pretty well handled by the police bureau. They did as I recall, an awful lot of negotiating and trying to get the people involved and the people in a leadership role in the demonstration and so forth to conform to some standards anyway, willingly. And I think they did do that, but it went on, and as I recall, when the police bureau finally went in to shut things down, they did go in a very strong show of force. In other words, don't show weakness when you go into a situation like that. You try to show your strength. I think that's what they were doing. I know the guy that was in charge of it, and I know he's not a brutal person. He's quite the opposite. And I talked to him a little bit about it over the years. And it did get some bad press, but in 1970, it was pretty hard for the Portland Police Bureau to get good press when they did anything.
Let's recognize these people for what they are. They're not romantic revolutionaries. They're the same thugs and hoodlums that have always plagued the good people.
July 1970. A political thunderstorm is headed for Portland when Richard Nixon announces he will visit the city in August and host a convention of 25,000 members of the American Legion. Anti-war activists from up and down the West Coast are ready for a rematch. They also make plans to visit Portland and disrupt Nixon's convention. One of the main protest groups to emerge in Portland that summer was known as the People's Army Jamboree. With support from Vietnam veterans against the war, also known as the VVAW, the People's Army Jamboree turned its attention to the American Legion Convention scheduled for late August in downtown Portland. This would be a good opportunity for the group to make a statement against the Legion's unconditional support of the Vietnam War.
At the strike, Portland State, we knew that we were all going to organize around, as soon as this was over, organize around the American Legion and their national convention. I don't remember who came up with the name People's Army Jamboree. It was great, though. And what it was sort of was an amalgam of Northwest groups, Oregon and Washington, and the VVAW was, in a sense, to spearhead it. And most of the time we didn't have any squabbles. But when we did have them, we did have them. I remember this lady gave us $10,000, and that's the worst thing you can do to any kind of organization, because then you start fighting like hell of how you're going to spend it. If you want to break up any political group, give them some money. They'll fight over it so bad they'll never speak to each other again.
With the stage set for two opposing political forces to meet in Portland, it did not take Governor Tom Mccall long to realize that he had a major problem on his hands. The potential for violence was very real, and Governor Mccall did not want to experience a Kent State episode in Oregon.
The story is that the People's Army Jamboree was organized in a response to a rumor that had been circulating in the underground press at the time. The rumor was that there were going to be hordes of people coming to town to demonstrate during the time of the Legionnaires' convention over the Labor Day weekend. So the People's Army Jamboree formed to spearhead that movement in Portland, which would be a violent confrontation. And there were several of us that decided that we didn't think that was a very good response. From our point of view, we wanted to make, real change, and real change is made by positive actions, not by negative reactions. I still don't believe that violence solves problems. It's ineffective.
Oh, it was built up to be a big thing. I mean, the press was raising the specter of fear. And we were trying to figure out how to, people from all over the country were claiming they were going to come. We didn't want it. We wanted to do what we thought we'd have to do, but not anybody get hurt.
The specter of fear was rising in Portland. Business owners were boarding up their storefronts as if a hurricane were approaching. If the governor and his staff were going to find a solution to this problem, they were going to have to act fast. Meanwhile, a group called The Family was thinking of alternatives to a confrontation, like that of May 11th's Bloody Monday. Thousands of young people would be arriving in Portland, and they would all need a place to stay. Not all of them would be interested in politics. Many were coming simply to express the need for a new and better lifestyle. How about staging a rock concert? That would attract even more people. What the group needed was a piece of land where everyone could camp out, have fun, and show the American Legion that people can live together in a peaceful and cooperative setting. And that was fine with the People's Army Jamboree. To them, the situation in Portland was looking more and more like an excuse for the police and National Guard to attack political activists.
The National Guard, some friends of mine that were in the Guard brought back some photographs of bayoneted dummies, and one of them had my name on it, and they all were made to look like hippies, we're thinking, okay, this is look like an ambush, and that's why we told everybody, stay home. We can handle it.
In mid-July, 4 members of the family took a drive from Portland to the state capitol in Salem to ask Governor Tom Mccall for a place to stage a rock festival during the same time period as the American Legion Convention. This group of young hippies expected the trip to be a waste of time. Lee Meyer was a member of the group.
I don't remember a whole lot. There were 4 of us that went down. We went down in an Opel Kadett, and we had an appointment with Ed Westerdahl, the lieutenant governor. He received us warmly and was very enthusiastic. And I don't remember the exact timeline, but it was within very short order I got a phone call that we had been given the property and out at McIver Park.
Governor Tom Mccall was known as a maverick in the political scene, but even he needed some convincing that this strange plan would work.
Westerdahl, are you crazy?
We came up with a pretty radical approach, which was called Vortex2, but in essence a legalized pot party. But he was also convinced it was the right thing to do to keep Portland from becoming a battleground.
McCall's press aide, Ron Schmidt, told the governor that Vortex2 could cost him the election campaign.
He had a swivel chair, and he swiveled around with his back to us, and he just kind of looked up for a minute. We were all waiting for the response, swiveled back and said, "I have just made my decision. I have just committed political suicide. We're going to have Vortex."
Just finally came to the conclusion that handling this right would incidentally be good politics. And handling it wrong because you were too timid and you were shading toward what was safe and conventional and useless, probably.
Breaking the news to the public would be a little tricky. On August 6, 1970, Ed Westerdahl and two representatives of the family, Bobby Way and Glenn Swift, appeared at a press conference announcing Vortex2. So a rock festival was born during that summer of 1970. It was officially promoted as Vortex2, a biodegradable festival of life. And as far as anyone knew, it was the first state-sanctioned, state-sponsored rock festival in American history. This 5-day festival was free to anyone who wanted to come. And they came by the thousands. Officially, the event was to begin August 28th and go to September 2nd. But many people showed up a week or two early.
Yeah, we packed up our bus, all the PA gear, all the equipment, and we drove out there, and they were constructing the stage. So we set up our own. We plugged into the barbecue pit outlet and ran some power cords, and the first thing we did, our Frank Dardano, he gets this Marshall stack out, two 200-watt stacks of Marshalls, turns his guitar on and starts playing over this huge river valley, and it was a wonderful experience. And pretty soon we had quite a gathering of our own going. So we had a mini rock festival going before the thing actually happened.
Several versions of maps to the park were available. Law enforcement didn't want anyone getting lost on the way out there. Some maps even had detailed written instructions with helpful advice and suggestions on how to avoid potential problems. The best advice was to just follow the other cars. During the weekend, traffic to McIver Park was backed up for miles. Never before had there been a traffic jam this big in Oregon.
I thought, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to be. I don't want to be in Portland for this. It sounds peaceful out there. This may be a cop-out, but I'm going.
McIver State Park is named after Milo K. McIver, an Oregon State Highway Commissioner from 1950 to 1962. The park included over 800 acres of fields and wooded areas on a series of natural terraces above the Clackamas River. Camping was prohibited at the time, but the governor waived that restriction. This was a perfect setting for an event like Vortex2. The governor and Ed Westerdahl preferred this park because there was only one way in and one way out. This would be an advantage to law enforcement in case of unruly crowds.
You can
Now it was time to clean up the park and for the park's temporary guests to go home.
You know, they cleaned up afterwards, and the park department had crews in there too. But the people that controlled the event down there stepped in and did clean it all up, and that was greatly appreciated.
It was a plan, you know, it was a plan to divert a disaster, and it was pretty sweet, really. I had a strong feeling that the force was with us.
Lee was really instrumental in putting on a big event, you know, a historical event. You know, for me, it was a party to go to. But, you know, the atmosphere, the spirit of Vortex is something I already had. And so, you know, it wasn't a revelation to me to go out there. I was happy to go out there, had a good time, thought it was great. This was really the first time that young people, counterculture if you call it, worked together with the government to do something, you know, to prevent violence or for whatever reason. I guess the point is that they were working together. And, I mean, they pulled it off. I mean, they pulled off a great event.
Well, you got to remember, I was 25. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'd like to have gone, but the office asked us to please stay out of there when we weren't working.
And to believe that we could live in an alternative way and still be able to make it in the world, with you know, get by with some help from our friends.
And then just various people.
After taping Matt Love at MacIver Park, the camera crew gets ready to leave. Matt invites them to stop at the Viewpoint restaurant near the park.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go to the Viewpoint.
He bets the crew that he will be able to find at least one customer that attended Vortex 1. But after 35 years, it's a bet he is almost certain to lose.
So tell me about when you went out to the park.
Well, I went out there with a couple other people or teachers, you know.
Okay. All right.
And I guess maybe it was a study thing. I don't know. We went out to the park, and then we just kind of walked around and see what was going on, you know. It was well organized and well run. I can tell you that. Then we walked away and thought, you know, what's the big deal? What's the big deal?
What is the big deal?
There wasn't any big deal, you know.
It may not have seemed like a big deal to some people, but to Tom Mccall, it meant that he and his staff could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The festival was over, and the streets of Portland were returning to normal. There would be no more Bloody Mondays while he was in office.
Once Vortex was perceived as a success by the state's newspapers and the media, which was instantaneous, if you read the editorial pages at the time, it was that he pulled this off. Bold decision-making. There was no violence. Portland came out smelling like a rose because they were able to pull off this event and manage the anti-war movement, unlike Chicago.
In the end, the story of Vortex 1 was all about solving a problem. The Vietnam War protests continued, but during the summer of 1970, the streets of Portland were peaceful, despite the American Legion Convention. To Governor Tom Mccall and Ed Westerdahl, solving problems was part of their job, even though in this case, their solution made for one of the most unusual political decisions in American history. But they made it work, with a little help from their friends.
Vortex mine, with me all the time. Don't pass the time and I don't know why. At Vortex 1, there's always someone to let you know what road you're on. Hit me on the head with blue and red. I got the time if you bring the wine. I'm on the track to a heart attack. Topless woman on a horse's back. Yeah, it's so much fun at Vortex 1. Vortex 1. The word is go on the radio. A new horizon every place I go. Camping on the land, sitting in the sand. Pretty girl smiling in the back of a van. Wish you were here while my mind's still clear. Tom Mccall is the man of the year. Nixon riding in a Cadillac. Pots and doves in a Pontiac. Yeah, it's so much fun at Vortex 1. Vortex 1. Vortex 1. Vortex 1. Vortex mine, hit me on the behind, miss this one, it will be a crime. I don't know just where I've been, better write it down before my head caves in. Last night we called for alcohol, if I knew you then I don't recall. I feel alright with the stars so bright, space and time and a good campsite. Yeah, it's so much fun